Okay, so this is long overdue. Here's all my reads over the past like almost 3 months. And these are just the physical ones. It's like double this, I think. So looking at my lists, I didn't do wrap-ups for these months because I was like, oh, I'll just kind of squish them together. I don't know if I have enough to talk about. I have enough to talk about. I have a lot to talk about now. I truly don't know what to do with my hair anymore. Okay. Let's start with August. Yeah, because I think the last month wrap-up that I did was for July. I always think someone's knocking on my door and it's my ice machine. Okay, so in August, this feels so, and it kind of was so long ago. I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. I don't have it physically because I am waiting for the paperback. I gave this a 4 out of 5. I remember feeling I was really into it ambiance-wise. And everyone's right, she is really stepping up the game as far as how she's describing things and just like descriptions, and this setting, really you feel it. Super brief premise, a group of friends always go to Maine for Lobster Fest. It's 6 of them, so it's 3 couples. One of the couples breaks up, nobody knows about it. They all come back, forced proximity. She's so good at writing all of the relationships outside of the romantic relationship. She writes personal connections and like friendships and sibling relationships. She does those so well. And then she also does the romantic relationships well. And they really just play off of each other. I think that's why her writing is so good. And then the banter, she has great dialogue, all the things. But I don't know, I gave it a 4 instead of a 5 because I feel like it was kind of lacking the the playfulness that you get out of her other books, and I still liked it. She's a phenomenal writer and I will continue to buy everything she comes out with. Also, I want to go to Maine now. I want to go to Lobster Fest. Put it on the calendar. Ooh. Okay, then I read, this was a good one. I read The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I have since, which we'll get to in a second, read another Riley Sager book in the past and in September, and I hated them. And I totally get it. There is a factor in the way that he writes that's very likable. I loved this book. I gave this book, I think, a 4.5 out of 5. It just doesn't always translate to me because clearly they're either such a hit or such a miss for me, but that kind of intrigues me. I don't know. Okay, so this one is like a gothic mystery. It's in this house. My friends and I read this for our first little book club that we put together with each other. If you want to keep up with that, we're on Fable. And I also posted a video of that. You'll find it. It's on my channel. But this is a caretaker, works for this super rich lady in this house, but the super rich lady in this house was accused of essentially murdering her whole family like a bunch of years ago, and she was never convicted or anything, but the general thought of the public that live in this town is like, yeah, she did it. And so stuff happens and we find out what actually happened that night and who did it and why and all the little things, and the plot twists were twisting. Okay, so in August I also finished Orange, the second, volume. This one was like just as cute as the first one, but then it also has like grief in it and it's sad, but it's sweet, just all the feels. It left off at a pretty good point. Maybe I'll pick up the next book if I just get the feeling again that I want to read it. But for now, just reading the first 2 was really good. I think there's like 7 of them now. But yeah, I feel like it left off on a really good stopping point. Also, group of friends, but they're in high school and this girl gets a letter from herself 10 years in the future and makes it like her mission to stop bad things from happening that her future self knows. I don't know if I mentioned this. It's a manga, so if you like mangas, I'd recommend it. Did I read this in August? I guess I did. I read Mother Thing in August. I'm obsessed with this cover. it's so cute. I don't know what it is about it, but I love it. It was very eerie. It did the things that it needed to do, but honestly, in my head, I keep comparing it to Bunny and A Certain Hunger, and I think that maybe if you start with this one, that's good, and then go on to those, but after having read those and then going to this one, it felt a little lackluster. But it was still good enough that I would give this like a 3.5, maybe? I'd say 3.5. I'd say 3.5. Oh, I also forgot. This one I forgot to rate. I would say 4. So pretty solid so far. Ooh, okay, so on my Kindle, I read Six Scorched Roses. This is the novella that goes with The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. I loved this. It was like a little over 100 pages, I think. I loved it. Honestly, I would argue that I liked it more than The Serpent and the Wings of Night, which I did really like that book. It wasn't giving me a ton that I hadn't seen already, but I love the ambiance of what it is, so I read it and liked it, but honestly, it hasn't piqued my interest enough for me to pick up the sequel, but I did really like the novella, and you don't have to read the series to read the novella. But basically what you need to know about this is vampires, gothic, romantasy. That's what's going on. So I think I would rate this like a 4 or 4.5. I had such a good time reading it. Do I remember everything that happened? No, couldn't tell you much. Couldn't tell you hardly anything, actually. But I remember the feeling it gave me when I read it, and I really liked it. And it made me feel accomplished because I finished it pretty fast. Can't believe I read this in August. I've been waiting to talk about this one. No, I haven't. I've mentioned it a couple times, but I've been waiting to really talk about it. I want to make like a whole vlog for the series, kind of like how I did with Throne of Glass. I read Fourth Wing, and the way that I explain it is it's honestly not super groundbreaking with like a new story. It's pretty straightforward. Romantasy vibes, dystopian a little bit, very like Divergent mixed with House of Dragon type feeling. Some of the things are predictable. Did I absolutely eat it up though? Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, I did. I truly couldn't tell you what it is, but I consumed this book. I loved this book so much. It gave me that like Divergent, Hunger Games, Twilight feeling from the beginning. And so I am so excited to get the second book. I really hope it stays consistent with how much I like it, but I did absolutely love it. 5 stars, easy. But at the same time, I know it's so hyped up, so I don't want to say like, you have to read it, it's the best thing in the whole world. And then the expectations aren't managed. I don't know, it feels like all of those series, but it didn't strike me in a way that wasn't original enough. Like I was never feeling, this is too similar to this. I could definitely see the inspiration in some things, for sure. But like the big plot twist moments and stuff like that, I feel like even if they were a little predictable, it's not like they were in these massive series. So I still got really excited, and I don't know, I was just very into it. It was my time. It was my time to read this, and it hit as much as it could have. Okay, so those were the 6 books that I read in August. Now for the 6 books I read in September. So at the very beginning of September, I went back to the lake, and I've been doing this thing where I try and read thrillers, and it's like a bonus if they're at the lake. So I read 3 books over the span of a couple days. I started with No Exit. This one I liked. It definitely was thrilling. Maybe that's not the word I should use. It was so incredibly anxiety inducing. But I was in really bad traffic, kind of like scary traffic, and so I think that kind of played off of it too. But let me tell you, I was sweating. I was sweating in the car listening to this audiobook, just making it faster and faster because I had to know what happened. So I know it's kind of annoying to do the quarter ratings, but I would give it like a 3.75. I am so bad at remembering to actually tell you guys what these are about. I think everyone knows what Fourth Wing's about. Dragons and fantasy. That's the gist. No Exit is this lady that gets snowed into a rest stop, and in one of the people's cars that's also at the rest stop, she sees a kidnapped child. And so it's the whole book is like her trying to figure out how to save this kid. Then I read The Last House on Needless Street. New favorite, 5 stars. Isn't that so crazy that I had back-to-back months where I read a 5-star book? I love that for me. Let's keep that trend going. But yeah, 5 stars. This is one of my new absolute favorite mystery thrillers. So good. It's about a missing persons case of this kid that went missing, but I think it was like 11-ish years ago. And now some things are coming back up and the sister is back in this town and she's trying to figure out what's going on. But it's so good, and I don't really want to talk about it too much because my preference is always to go in blind, so I don't really want to spoil anything. But at the end, don't read it until you finish the book. At the end, definitely read. It's not an epilogue, and it's not like, I guess it's kind of an author's note. Read it because it is just essential. Not necessarily to the story, but I guess to real life context. Read it, and I think it just, reading that part makes the story even so much better. So, loved it, 5 stars. Okay, this is the one I was talking about. So then, my last thriller, Riley Sager's House Across the Lake. I liked the setting. I liked some things about it. You know what, to be honest, it was campy. It was really campy to me. And I can get on board with that sometimes. Sometimes I'm here for the camp. This one in particular though, was just not my cup of tea. By the end, I was like raging. This brought out so many emotions for me. I was like, I truly cannot explain how much rage was brought out of me from this book. I knew what the plot twist trope was gonna be going into this. I won't say it, because I don't want to spoil, but I had that in mind, and I hated the trope, but knowing it beforehand, I went into it trying to prepare myself for it, and I feel like I kind of did manage my expectations okay with that one. Like I said, campy, which is fine. But I think what frustrated me so much with this book, I think I gave it a 2 stars. No, maybe I gave it a 1 star. I'll have to check on Goodreads, but I think I might have, yeah, I think I gave it a 1 star. I just felt like from the second half of the book on, like from the point where you find out this plot twist point to the end of the book, I felt like there were real world things that should have happened outside of the context of the story, like things that law enforcement would do, or the neighborhood, or like one of the other neighbors, something, I don't know. These characters just, to me, were not acting how regular adults would act outside of this like crazy scenario. Like the ones that saw the outside things without knowing what's actually happening, I feel like we're not acting realistically. And it bothered me so much. And then it wrapped up at the end, and I was like, no, that's not how this would happen. And the whole time I was like thinking about who it could be, and I like didn't trust this one character. There was some weird things that were coming up with that. And I get that there's like red herrings and stuff with thriller books. I get it. I for sure was reading into it too much, but it just wasn't it. It just was not it for me. So many people love this book though. So definitely try it out still. It's not a bad book because I don't like it. So that's where we're at with that one. Okay, so then I almost went to a V.E. Schwab book signing, and then I wasn't able to, which is kind of heartbreaking because I love The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue so much. That's one of my 5 stars, one of my favorites. So in preparation for that, I read A Darker Shade of Magic. This had a really, really cool premise. Obviously there's magic, but it's this guy who's a traveler. There's another word for it, but I forget what it is. And basically there's different Londons in like parallel dimensions, and he can travel between them, and they're all a little different. So like one is kind of like our London, it doesn't have any magic, normal. The one he lives in is thriving, there's lots of magic, and it's sustainable. Another one where it's very violent and very greedy with magic and everything, and it's not doing so hot. And there's another one that was like that and got so bad that it doesn't exist anymore. But it was just kind of mid. Like, I liked it and I liked the setting and I liked the magic system. It was interesting, but the actual plot just wasn't doing enough for me. So I probably am not gonna finish that series. And I think I rated it like a 3. Just very middle of the road. It has so many good elements to it, but it just didn't like pull through enough for me to continue. But it was a fun read. Okay, the next two I'm gonna talk about together just because I felt the same way about them, even though they're super different. So I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and then also King of Battle and Blood, which this was September's pick for me and my friends reading together. King of Battle and Blood is, what is it? It's like vampires and romantasy, there's a kingdom, like those type of vibes. You know what I'm talking about. This one is obviously the prequel for the Hunger Games. So very different. But both of them, I was obsessed with them in the beginning. The first half of the book, I was loving it. I was so surprised with how much I loved it, and I was just very invested. The second half of the books, however, really didn't do it for me. By the end of King of Battle and Blood, I mean, at the beginning, I was thinking like 4, maybe 5 stars. By the end of it, 2 stars. I just really was not impressed with how it was executed at the end. I just didn't like it. Same thing with this one. By the end of it, I think I give this book a 3. It was good. It was not Hunger Games good though. Not that I was really expecting that, but it surprised me so much at the first half of just where the plot was going, because I knew what the plot was gonna be. But the outcome from the first half of the book is not what I was expecting at all. The second half of the book really just dragged and it was boring and I didn't need it. Also, I have been seeing people talk about how because we all know it's about Snow. We all know where he ends up. So many people I have seen have talked about this book and said, oh, it's a really good villain origin story, seeing him from when he was younger and kind of him get evil or whatever over time. No! He was an ass from the beginning. What are you guys talking about? I will say, in the book, I appreciated that so much because I feel like we see the whole oh, they're a good person and now they're evil. But this was a person that was not a good person and then just got worse. And I feel like that's realistic. Oh wow, that was it from September. Okay, so now for this month, we're at mid-October right now. I was so excited for this book, 19 Claws and a Blackbird. I think the cover's really pretty. I think it's cool that it's short stories. Love the idea of it. I DNF'd this book. I think I read maybe 4 or 5 of the short stories and I didn't really love any of them. And so I was like, I don't want to continue reading 20 of them and get to the end and just think all of those were incredibly mid, and maybe one I liked, but I could just tell from the beginning this just wasn't a writing style that I was super into, but didn't hit the way I thought I was going to. Ooh, on audiobook, I read Persuasion by Jane Austen, and I loved this. This book made me realize that I think she's my favorite classics author. It was giving Pride and Prejudice. So if you liked Pride and Prejudice, read this one. It's not quite as grand, but it was still really good. Yeah, I gave this one a 4-star, which is not always the case with classics because sometimes it takes so much mental focus to get through the old English of things that you spend all of your time trying to figure out what's going on instead of assessing how much you like the storyline or being excited about what's coming next. So this one I did like. Ooh, this one, okay. So I just finished this. Also, another one where I love the cover. It's so cute. This is The School for Good Mothers. I've seen this one win a ton of awards, and I read the first half of it on Kindle, and on the Kindle description, it says it was one of Barack Obama's best books of 2022, and I ended up really liking it. So I was like, maybe I need to check out his book recs now. I am not gonna tell you what happens in this outside of the general premise, which is it's a mother. She leaves her infant at home, child services are called, and then it's the whole process of what happens after. I would say 4.25. 4.25 for this one. This one was really good. And let me tell you, at 30%, I'm pretty sure it's around page 100, 100 or 103 or something like that. It took a very distinct turn, and I loved the eeriness that it brought to the book. That's all I will say. Okay, so that's all that I have got from the past 3-ish months. Okay, I'm not gonna drag it out. That's all I got. Bye.